Emma Frame here, and welcome to Voices of Yoga podcast, co-hosted with Lindsay Porter, where we bring you inspiring yoga stories and insights from yogis and teachers from around the world. These stories highlight the benefits of yoga and encourage those who maybe haven't started yoga yet to get started, and for the more experienced to delve deeper. We hope you enjoy. This is podcast number 145 and video podcast number 13.
Namaste everybody, and welcome to our latest episode of Voices of Yoga with myself this evening recording Lindsay Porter of Yoga New You. So this evening's guest that I have with me on Voices of Yoga, she's an amazing yogi. She lives close to my home, but you know what? She's always globally wandering around the world and up to all sorts of adventures with her yoga and the spa and wellbeing industry that she's worked in for some time. So it's a delight she's obviously been around a little bit more at the moment with all of the virus things going on, and it's an absolute delight to speak to her this evening on Voices of Yoga. So a warm welcome and namaste to Lorna Green. Hi Lorna.
Hello and namaste. Thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited.
Taking this for us to have a catch up, isn't it?
Do you know what it is? And I'm sure people will not care in the slightest, but I'm going to tell them anyway. We could have done this interview about an hour ago, but we've just been nattering. So.
We have. We'll admit that.
We have saved all the good stuff for you, though. I promise.
Yes. So Lorna, we always start by, we like to ask our guests kind of how they came on to traveling along the yoga path and their life journeys. Could you start by sharing with us yours?
Yeah, and how long have you got? Well, I guess my yoga journey started when I was in my teens. A neighbor used to go to classes locally, and she very kindly allowed me to tag along, and it was sort of a once a week thing, and much more for me at that time about the physical benefits than really having any interest in the meaning or significance of yoga. And it wasn't until I hit my 30s when I encountered a pretty dark time in my life. I was sick, my businesses were failing, my relationship was crumbling, and I didn't really know it at the time, but I was suffering quite badly from depression. So I found my way onto a yoga mat, hoping that it was a release from this day-to-day stress that I was dealing with. But in all honesty, I approached it with such a desperate need to be fixed that all I could see was everyone around me doing amazing things with their body on a yoga mat or sitting in this zen-like blissful state. And here I was, the squirmy, frustrated plank of wood that just couldn't understand why I wasn't where everyone else was. And yoga actually just became another stick I used to beat myself up with. And ultimately, I lost everything at that time. I was bankrupt. I lost my relationship, my home, my businesses, the clothes on my back. And I was struggling very much with the belief that I was a loser in every possible sense of the word. I was a failure. I'd let people down. I'd let myself down. There was so much dislike for myself at that time. It was a very powerful thing. So when you are in, deepest, darkest depression, I did what I think everyone does. I took a job in the Maldives. So I moved to a tiny sandbank in the middle of the Indian Ocean, and I tried to heal myself. And it was while I was out there that my relationship with yoga evolved again. During my time there, I was exposed to all kinds of different styles of yoga. Lots of yoga teachers from all over the world were working out there. So I encountered different approaches, different ways of working, things I'd never seen when I was in Scotland. And after a couple of years of being out there, I actually resigned from my job. I moved to Thailand and I trained as a yoga teacher. And when I qualified, I thought this was the best thing ever. And then I went out into the world. I was actually working as a dive instructor immediately after that. And people would come up and say to me, "Oh, I heard that you're a yoga teacher." I'd be like, yeah, I am. "Could you teach me some yoga?" they would say. And I'd be like, "Yeah, of course we can. But maybe first we could do some Thai massage." or anything, just anything at all to avoid teaching yoga. And I couldn't understand why I was avoiding doing this thing that I felt very connected to and I thought I loved. And I did want to tell people about it, but I just wouldn't share it. And it was only maybe about a year after I qualified that I found what you might call my bliss, my soul purpose. It's the thing that I still talk about today. I found Yin Yoga, and it was the part of me that was missing, the balance to my very yang personality. And my journey to Yin was actually, I guess you would say, Lindsay, truth is stranger than fiction. The truth of this, you couldn't write it. So I was living in Thailand at that time, and a group of friends were going for dinner one night, and they were going to a restaurant. It was up a mountainside. It was a dark path. Didn't really want to go there on my own, but before they went for dinner, they were all going to this Yin Yoga class. I didn't want to go to a Yin Yoga class. Yin Yoga, like, snooze, it's for old people. I wasn't old. I was 37, I think, at the time. And I also really wanted to go for this dinner, and I didn't want to walk to the restaurant on my own. So, balanced it out. I thought, well, it's an hour of my life. I'll never get back. But, there's worse things that you can do. So I'll go to this yoga class. So off I went to my very first Yin Yoga class. And as I was lying on the mat, within the first few minutes of being there, if this had been a movie of my life, there would have been angels. There would have been sort of like, ah! in the background. That was what I experienced when I discovered Yin Yoga. And I knew there and then, this is why I hadn't been sharing my hatha practice. This is why I hadn't been sharing what I'd been taught, because this wasn't my calling. This wasn't where I was supposed to be. And then the universe just triggered the dominoes, and they went. So I'd had this aha moment, and not long after that, a friend had messaged me and said, if you get the opportunity to work with a guy called Victor Chung, you should do it. I said, all right, took a note of that name. A couple of days later, I get an email from Absolute Sanctuary in Thailand. Victor Chung is coming to Absolute Sanctuary to do a training in Yin Yoga. I went, oh, hang on, I know that name. But at that point, I was coming to Koh Samui to do a job. I was doing a hotel opening at that time, and his dates were bang on when I was supposed to start my contract. Okay, I can't do it, I thought, but at least I know he's there, and this is interesting. A couple of days after that, I get a message from the general manager of the hotel that I was going to do the spa opening for, and he messaged me and he said, Lauren, we've got a bit of a problem. You're coming to do your training next month, and I don't think you're going to be able to do it. And I was like, look, I can deal with a lot of things. And he went, yeah, but I think you would prefer to have walls in your spa, right? I said, well, yeah, maybe a floor would be good. He said, well, we don't really have any of that, but give us a month and, we'll be able to do it. So long story short, I put it to him that, if I could find something else to do for a few weeks and add those missing few weeks on to the end of my contract, would he be happy? He was ecstatic. I then contacted Absolute Sanctuary, and they said to me, wow, you're so lucky. We were actually fully booked for this training, but somebody cancelled today and there's a space. Would you like it? And I said, well, how can I say no? I mean, clearly this has my name on it. And so this was the start of my journey into yoga and Yin Yoga in particular. And from then on, you couldn't shut me up about it. I would literally tell dogs in the street about about the practice of yoga and Yin and everything that it meant to me. And that has been my life for about 10 years now.
Wow, gosh, there's so much to unpack in that amazing story there. Synchronicity for one, and I think it's also really empowering for the people that are listening, the yoga teachers, that sometimes we go on a training and that feels like that is the path, but as you can see from your story, there are so many different practices in yoga and styles, and it's really great to know that we've all got permission to do these things and see them experience, but it doesn't have to define you, does it? Exactly like you've said.
Not at all. And I think you said something so interesting there in that we can give ourselves permission to be uncomfortable with things. I mean, let's be honest, that's a core tenet of yoga in all its forms. your body, your gut, your intuition, if you want to call it, whatever name you want to call it, is so wise, and it knows what's right for you. And so often in life, especially in our Western minds, and forgive me for sort of compartmentalizing, but I think Westerners are much, much worse at tuning in than perhaps other cultures. But we're so busy kind of going, I want to go in this direction, when everything in your life is going, go that way, go that way. And we don't want to listen to it. We feel like, for some reason we're a failure, or we're getting something wrong, or why don't I love this job that I'm doing? Why don't I love this place that I'm in? Why don't I love this person that I'm with? Why am I feeling all of those things? Well, you're feeling them because universally you're being told this is not where you're supposed to be. So, like, surrender to it, let go, and just enjoy the flow. Enjoy, at the risk of sounding like a really cheesy yoga teacher, enjoy the journey, because that's what it is. Don't be rigid in your outcomes, because that is where stress and unhappiness lie. Your bliss really does lie in going with that sort of fluid motion. If something doesn't feel right down here in your gut, then pay attention to what's going on around you, because the signs are all there. Let's be honest, the signs are there. They're flashing neon. It's just whether we bother to look at them and pay attention or not. And I certainly, in my journey to Yin, I did not have an opportunity to ignore those signs. It couldn't be any more obvious that that's where I was supposed to be. But yeah, I do believe wholeheartedly that when you feel stuck, when you feel uncomfortable, when a situation feels wrong, it is wrong, and you've got to do something about it. And it's not because you've done anything bad, or you are in some way less than you should be. It's just that you made a choice. It maybe worked for you at one time in your life. It doesn't work for you now. So let's pivot, let's move, let's go in a new direction.
And I have to say, if anyone's listening to this thinking, gosh, that's me, or I feel that, go and read the chapter in The Woman That Runs with Raw Wolves called Seal Skin, Soul Skin. Have you read that chapter? I
Yes,
was just reading
I
it
have.
today,
I have.
enough. And what you describe there is kind of like that. And maybe more women than men, but maybe both. But the book is obviously specific to the female archetype.
Yeah.
But yeah, that whole thing about losing that seal skin and where your soul needs to be.
Yeah.
Oh, powerful stuff, huh?
Yes. Yes, agreed.
So, Lorna, another one of your passions I know is in the art of dancing with the pole, which is amazing and like creative and all that stuff. I'm just interested to find out, how does that kind of mesh with your yoga? Is there overlap there? Do you see them as completely separate?
No, not separate at all. Well, so again, understanding how I got to pole dancing probably helps you to understand why I still do it. And it's not just pole dancing, but pole was where it started for me. So this obsession with hanging off stuff started when I turned 40. And it kind of became a gateway to other things. It became a gateway to circus, and in recent years, flying trapeze is my new kind of forever love. But it all began when I turned 40, and I was still finding my way. So bear in mind, when everything was kind of falling apart for me, I was in my mid-30s, and I woke up as a sort of 30, I must have been about 35 at that time. So I'm a 35-year-old adult who has never made an adult decision on her own in her life, because I was in a relationship from the age of 16. So I went from living with my family to living with this man that I loved. Every major decision in my life that I'd ever made, I'd made with another person. So I'm 35 and kind of going, I don't know who I am. I don't know. I don't know what music I like. I don't know what food I like. Can I make friends? Can I put a roof over my head? I've never had to do any of this on my own. So by the time I got to 40, I was still a single woman getting to know myself after so many years of being in a relationship. And at that time, 40 being a very significant age and year, I decided that 40 was going to be my year of being fearless. And so one of the things that I decided that I wanted to do was I wanted to learn to pole dance, just because I thought it was like super sexy and very, very cool. And I thought, yeah, I want to do this. So fortunately, I happen to have a friend who is a pole dancer and owns a studio down in just outside of Bristol. And I asked her, can a yoga teacher become a pole dancer? And she went, yeah. Can a yoga teacher become a pole dancer in 5 days? And she went, yeah. I said, and could we possibly video the whole thing and I'll perform in public at the end of those 5 days, no matter how good or bad I am? And
you always manage to surprise me.
I think I surprised a lot of people at that time. So once Amira had scraped herself off the floor and wiped the tears of laughter from her eyes, she was like, hell yes, let's do it. So there, we can share a link if anybody wants to. There's still Lorna's 5 days 14 fearless pole challenge is still on YouTube to be seen by the world. If you want to see me in a pair of gold hot pants and red stripper boots, it's all there for the world to see. Never felt more empowered in my life. So I basically started this journey with this sort of 5 days of learning, and it introduced me to a world of really incredible people. Women who are a bit scary on the outside. This is a world of piercings and tattoos and like abs that I would sell a kidney for. This is not the world of yoga that I came from, with long flowing dresses and, people with their mala beads. These are like, really hardcore women. But the people I met through this are some of the most inclusive, supportive, kick you in the butt people I have ever met in my life. And the pole dancing led me to hoop and to discover the joys of flying trapeze and rope and other stuff, and hanging off things, is still my happy place. But what I loved most about being in this environment was that, these women would hold you up, and I mean like literally hold you up by the ass mostly, but figuratively as well. They would be there to hug you when you did something amazing. They would be there to hug you when something really bad was happening. And like these sort of terrifying women on the outside were just so confident about who they are. They didn't need to be bitchy and mean and put other people down, because they were just so comfortable in their own skin. And it's hard not to be comfortable when you are basically standing in a room full of people in your bra and pants, because that's what you do in pole dancing. You need to get comfortable with yourself pretty quickly. And if you're not comfortable, then there are people there to help you become comfortable. And so the crossover with yoga for me was the fact that I was in an environment where people were only out for your highest good. And that's all I'd ever encountered whenever I get on my yoga mat. It's about being around people who get that love is the answer, who get that the world is going to be a better place if we all just slow down a little bit and maybe stop talking quite so much. I know that's really rich coming from me. I can do it at times. But if we maybe all stop talking quite so much and start listening. And I found this world of, yes, it's completely different in terms of, you're sweating, you're pushing your body to physical extremes, but on an emotional level, it was so supportive and profound. Like some of the experiences that I have had and continue to have, or will continue to have whenever we get out of this lockdown, has been with people in these incredible places. When I think the very first time I ever stepped on a flying trapeze, well, I didn't step on a flying trapeze, that would be really clever, wasn't it? Hung off a flying trapeze, was I only went. I went to do flying trapeze as a one-off. I wanted some pictures for Instagram. I'm not going to lie. I just wanted a cool picture that I could go, yeah, look, I've been on a flying trapeze. I mean, this thing just blew me away. But it wasn't just the act of being on the flying trapeze that I fell in love with. It was the people and their energy and the energy around that I fell in love with. And I'm a great believer in balance. And being someone who practices Yin Yoga, this slowing down, this grounding, practice is the balance that I need, because I'm a very yang person. I'm very much about energy. I'm, like a little ginger-haired energizer bunny on a daily basis. And so pole and circus and hoop and aerial yoga and all of these more sort of powerful physical practices are something that I'm very drawn to as an individual. And I love them because I can then come to my mat and my yin side comes out, and it feels just so perfect to balance that energy and that activity with something that is so calming and nurturing. And it also makes me stronger in terms of my yin side, I believe, has allowed me to continue to do the things that I'm doing. I mean, I'm 46 years old, and my hobbies are flying trapeze and aerial hoop. This is not what I think we consider normal in our society. I mean, what is normal? Well, that's not a question. Let's not get into that tonight. But it's not considered normal. But I'm injury free. I'm fit. I'm healthy. I'm probably healthier than I ever was even in my 20s. And I firmly believe that comes from yoga. Helps me to connect with my body on a level that when I do things that are more active, perhaps more physically aggressive, because I'm in tune with what's going on, I know what my limits are. I know how to do things in a way that is safe for me. And so I can push myself and I can do, really stupid things sometimes, hanging off bits of equipment, but I can do it in a way that actually only strengthens me. It doesn't damage me.
How powerful. Wow, that's brilliant. And I'm sure it's going to really inspire a lot of people listening to this to maybe try something else. And that idea of balance, that you don't have to get all of that from one practice. You can look to other places and just making it work for you.
Yeah.
So listeners will know already how just the smart and sassy energy that you have just radiates from you. And I know that you've been channeling some of that during the period of lockdown to create something amazing that's going to be sharing with other teachers and yoga people out there. Would you mind just telling us a bit more about what is this and what you're doing and how can people get on board with it?
I would not mind at all. Look, lockdown has been challenging on all of us in so many ways, and not least for businesses that rely on being hands-on and face-to-face with their clients. We've all had to sort of make the switch to an online model that, God, it's just a minefield of stress on so many levels, right? How do I communicate on a personal level via a computer screen? Or what about the tech stuff? It's all so overwhelming. I'm too old to do this stuff. I'll never be able to master it. How do I manage my nerves about being on camera? This question I've seen over and over again. I've seen it from friends in the industry, not just yoga, but in fitness and in the spa world as well. People who are incredibly confident when they could stand in front of a room of 1,000 people and not break a sweat. Put the red light of a camera in front of them and they lose the power of speech. It is such a nerve-wracking thing, and it's such a different thing to be able to communicate via a camera as it is to have the energy in the room of all the people around you, to be able to just make that little touch and adjustment when you're teaching a class, or if you're sharing a technique, for example, if you work in the spa. For me, I moved my business online pretty quickly, and I felt quite confident about doing so because, in all honesty, I'd actually been thinking about moving more in that direction even before the COVID thing happened. But I found myself speaking to friends in fitness, yoga, spa, all of these worlds about how I'd done it. And I found myself giving little trainings to people. And it all made me think, hang on, this is not unique to my pod of people. There's lots of folks out there that are struggling with this. And worse than that, there are people who are just paralyzed with the overwhelm of it all. And so I decided to do something about it. So I've been a spa trainer for about 20 years of my life and a yoga teacher for the last 10. And so teaching for me is a calling. It's what I genuinely believe I was put on this earth to do. I'm here to teach people stuff, to share knowledge, and hopefully to empower people to grow. And so I created this thing called the Booked and Busy Blueprint for salons and studios. And it's an ongoing love affair right now. It is definitely, you know, it is to be continued. It's begun with 2 self-guided courses. The first one teaches people how to find confidence in front of the camera, and the second is all about making live streaming super easy. In fact, it's actually called Ludicrously Easy Live Streams. I think it says it all in the title, really. I've got some short courses about building an email list, how to deliver your content more effectively without Facebook and social media and so on just sucking all of your time away. I'm currently working on some really powerful mindset trainings as well. I think more and more, but this year in particular, we're going to see what I would call the rise of the authentic marketer. And what I mean by that is that you don't have to have the fanciest setup, the best camera, be perfect in your delivery. In fact, nobody wants you to be perfect. People crave honesty because it's a trait that's very much lacking in our world right now. When you can show up knowing what you've got to share and that you can do it with greater confidence and not feel overwhelmed by the tech or afraid to put yourself out there, out to this global audience, your business is going to grow and you're going to attract the people that need to hear your message. You know, just a side note just popped into my head. There is enough out there for all of us. If you're a yoga teacher and you're effectively in direct competition with me, why wouldn't I want you to level up your skills and offer something great? We're always stronger together, in my opinion. And I think if we stop viewing each other as competition and start holding each other up as collaborators, then we'll see not only ourselves able to grow, but we see our industry, you know, as a whole. So Booked and Busy is the start, it's the bud of what I'm about to grow. I'm just about to open up a Facebook group, which is a private group for anybody who's interested in Booked and Busy, and it's called Heart Not Hustle. Again, the clue is in the name. As I said a few minutes ago, I firmly believe that authentic marketing is where it's at. You know, everybody's just sick to death of these people that have hired a Ferrari for the day, and everything is about 6-figure businesses, let's all do 6 figures. You know, do you know what? I'd just like to be able to pay my rent this month, right? And if I can help people to find their confidence, to feel less afraid of speaking their truth online and not worrying so much about people's judgments around that, not worrying so much about whether they can, you know, understand the tech. If I can connect people in an authentic way as well, then let's do it. I've got a real hankering to create a powerful community of heart-centered entrepreneurs. I kind of hate that phrase, but I don't know how else to put it, but heart-centered business people who are interested in actually giving their customers value. They want to share their knowledge with love. They want to share their knowledge because they know that they've got something to say that is going to make a difference. You know, this is, it's time that we had more of those voices heard, Lindsay, because for too long I think the heart-centered kind of community have been in the background. Because I don't know about you, but I know that I harbored a belief for a long time that as a yoga teacher I should never charge too much for my teachings, because, well, actually in reality yoga should be free for everyone. And I harbored that for a long, long time. And then, I gave myself a little sort of mental slap and, looked at my training, my skill set, my knowledge, and said, well, hang on. What? Yes, it would be lovely if none of us needed money to put a roof over our head or food in our bellies, but actually there's more to it than that. It's not just about wanting money for your knowledge. It's about that energy exchange. It's about saying, well, I'm going to give you something and you're going to give me something back for it. And we start this cycle, of energy moving, and we're all better off for it. And it took me a long time to get to that way of thinking. And I think our money mindset is something that really needs to be worked on, which interestingly enough is another part of the Booked and Busy blueprint that I am currently working on. But it's how to break through those money blocks that I think a lot of us who are very empathic in our businesses and who perhaps don't necessarily come from business backgrounds, but we've kind of wandered into this yoga or beauty or the fitness industry because we're very passionate about it, but we haven't got a clue how to run it as a business. And business doesn't have to be big and evil and mean and sort of taking advantage of people. Business can actually be incredibly ethical and wonderful and do really, really good things out there. And that is what Booked and Busy is all about.
Brilliant. And I wholeheartedly agree. And I think it is good to see more stuff coming and even more stuff coming in teacher training courses. But I still, yeah, like you, I think there's still more stuff to be done, more work to be done. And just like our yoga practices, we need to find the balance. So yeah, and the balance
Yeah.
of that. So can you share with us the website that people can go to find out more and to find out more about you, to more about Booked and Busy?
Yeah, well, there's a couple of websites to find out about me. So if it's the yoga side that you're more interested in, that would be lornagreenyoga.life. And there is a section in there that will take you to Booked and Busy if you want to look at some of the business side as well. The Booked and Busy website is as it says, it's bookedandbusyblueprint.com. And there's a specific school address. So bookedandbusy.com will take you to a landing page for it, but there's a school address which is a little bit longer, which I'm happy to share. I can share a link to it after we've spoken today, because it's a bit lengthy and complex, but basically Booked and Busy Blueprint, you'll find it.
Thank you. And Lorna, we always like to ask our guests if they can share something that's currently inspiring them, or something they've read recently that's maybe inspiring your own yoga journey or your teaching or your business. What springs to mind to you right now?
Okay, so I was reading recently. Now I think, oh gosh, I hope I pronounce this correctly. I think it's a Thich Nhat Hanh. Did I say that right? I hope so. A Thich Nhat Hanh, not necessarily, I don't know if I would call it a quote, maybe it's more of a mantra, but I've been using it every time I've been on my mat for the last few weeks. It's just going around and around in my head. And the quote is quite simply, as I breathe in, I've just gone blank. I need to get into my meditation. As I breathe in, I calm my body, I calm my mind. As I breathe out, I smile. Which apparently I can only share if I have my eyes closed.
Every day is a new learning day.
I've been using that for the last few weeks as just a mantra to focus myself whenever I'm in my personal practice, and I find it just works very well with my breath pattern, and it seems to just bring me. The outside world just melts away. It allows me to turn inwards and to really focus on what I'm feeling, not just physically, emotionally, spiritually. It's that turning into the inner world that I think is so challenging for all of us. There's always distractions, there's always things going on around us, and that little mantra for me is just a great way to ground me down and to just allow the outside world to melt away. As I breathe in, I calm my mind, I calm my body. As I breathe out, I smile.
That's wonderful. Thank you. Thank you for sharing that. Before we sign off, I just want to share with the listeners a bit that before we came on, Lorna and I were chatting, and we were talking about how during lockdown, Lorna was doing this chat and chai session with her mum, and she was sharing with me how her mum was like almost like a stand-up comedian. But I have to say, I think it's a family trait. You've been just absolute joy to interview, and some of your stories were unexpected but amazing. And you've always got more to share and say, and I can't wait till we meet up for a chat and chai in person again.
Absolutely, absolutely. You just name it. I think we're at a point now, Lindsay, where we can at least sit on a bench at opposite ends or something in a park. So let's make a plan and do something really soon. I'd love that.
So that just leaves me to say a big thank you and a namaste, Lorna, for joining us today on Voices of Yoga. Take care.
Absolutely, my pleasure. Thank you.
Thanks for tuning in to Voices of Yoga, and we hope you feel inspired. You can find more of our free podcasts at www.voicesofyoga.com, and we are on all the main podcast platforms too. We are very open to comments and suggestions, so if you'd like to also leave us a review on iTunes, that would be fantastic. If you would like to know when the most recent podcast is going to be broadcast, you can sign up to our newsletter on the website, and we will drop you an email with that recent update. Voices of Yoga is our passion project, and if you like what we're doing and you would like to support us, it would be very much appreciated. And you can do that through a very small donation on our website on the donation button if you feel so inclined. If you would like to collaborate with us in terms of sponsorship, advertising, or even suggest coming on and being a guest, then please drop us an email at voicesofyoga@mail.com. So thanks again, and we look forward to bringing you another inspiring yoga story next week. Namaste.